In my past life, Ethan Carter had taken it upon himself to care for his fallen fellow soldier's wife and daughter. When Scarlett Reed was sick, he brought her water and medicine. When she cried, he sat with her and offered soft, comforting words. When she complained about how hard it was to raise a child alone, he stepped in as her free chauffeur and all-around helper, driving her everywhere and handling every errand. As his wife, I could barely get a minute of his time. When I'd finally had enough and asked for a divorce, Ethan called me petty and narrow-minded, said I was being unreasonable for refusing to tolerate mother and daughter. So I marked a red X on the wall calendar, and silently started a divorce countdown in my head. It was also one last chance for Ethan to come to his senses. He never took it. On the final day of the countdown, he'd promised to have one last dinner with me. Instead, he left me sitting alone at the restaurant to go celebrate Scarlett's daughter's birthday. I waited until dark, and he never showed. On my way home alone, I was cornered by thugs and assaulted to death. When I opened my eyes again, I was back at that dinner table, on the last day of the countdown. Sophia Reed, Scarlett's daughter, was tugging on Ethan's sleeve, pouting and clinging to him. "Uncle Ethan, you said you'd come to my birthday party, remember? It's my birthday today." Her big, fluttery lashes glistened with held-back tears, her lower lip trembling. Ethan's face softened with instant fondness. He swept Sophia up into his arms, then glanced over at me, eyes full of guilt. "Vivian, can we finish this dinner later? Sophia's birthday only comes once a year. I can't skip it." The familiar scene slammed into me. I was sure of it, I'd been reborn. I steadied my breathing and gave him a gentle, gracious smile. "Sophia's birthday is important. Go on. Don't worry about me." Ethan shot me a grateful look, then turned to Scarlett, who was standing right beside him. "Scarlett, let's go." The three of them stood there together, looking for all the world like a warm, happy little family. I was the outsider. Scarlett nodded, then turned to me with a performative, apologetic air. "Vivian, I'm so sorry to ruin your dinner. I don't know how to make it up to you. Sophia insisted on coming to find you." I saw right through her little act. It hit me then that I'd be in danger walking home alone later, and besides, the whole table of food was already served, there was no way I was paying for it. I smiled tolerantly. "Easy fix. You can cover the bill, and then drive me home." I glanced over at Ethan beside her. "Ethan, you don't need to come back. Stay there and keep them company." I said it calmly, generously, ignoring the stunned look on his face. Scarlett's smile tightened, faintly forced. "All right, of course." I packed up every last dish on the table and climbed into the back seat of Ethan's car. Scarlett, holding Sophia, settled into the passenger seat like she belonged there. The air in the car was thick and awkward. I didn't care at all. When we arrived, I grabbed my takeout and walked inside without a single glance back at Ethan. Once home, I stared at the red X on the wall calendar, my ridiculous divorce countdown from my past life. I ripped that page clean off. Real letting go isn't some self-indulgent countdown to make yourself feel noble. It's paying back every bit of pain the other person put you through, exactly as they gave it. Ethan came home well after midnight. The sound of the front door woke me. He walked over to the bed, his voice heavy with guilt. "Vivian, we'll have that dinner another day. I'll make it up to you, I promise." I lay with my back to him, deliberately not looking. I smiled bitterly inside. He'd said the exact same thing last time, in my past life. "It's fine," I said flatly. "Dinner doesn't matter." Ethan went quiet for a beat, thrown off by my tone. Then he spoke carefully, testing the waters. "Vivian, are you mad at me?" I closed my eyes, my voice steady and empty. "No." He stood by the bed for a long time, quiet, like he was trying to read my mind. After a while, he slipped into bed without another word. The next morning, Ethan was up before me. He walked out of the kitchen wearing an apron, holding a plate of breakfast, and smiled warmly the second he saw me. Morning. Why didn't you sleep in? I made breakfast. He untied his apron and told me brightly. I took the day off. We can make up for that dinner we missed last night. I looked at the breakfast he'd so carefully prepared, and a cold chill ran through me. Sandwiches and fried eggs. That was Scarlett's favorite. I liked buttermilk biscuits and oatmeal. I knew because Ethan had made the exact same thing once and brought it over to Scarlett's house. I pushed down the last flicker of feeling in my chest and didn't even look at him. Scarlett probably hasn't eaten yet. Take it to her. Since you have the day off, go spend it with her. Before he could recover from the blow, I walked out the door. Ethan Carter, I don't want your scraps of attention ever again. I pulled myself together and headed to work, throwing myself fully into my shift at the hospital. I had clinic hours that day. Patients came and went steadily, keeping me so busy I barely had time to breathe. It was almost evening, right before my shift ended, when Holden Hayes walked in with his steady, measured stride. Dr. Moore. I need a refill. He was always a man of few words. I glanced up at him. Tall and straight-backed, he cut a striking figure in his military uniform. His tan skin glowed in the golden sunset light, sharp and ruggedly handsome. Your leg acting up again? I asked automatically. In my past life, Holden had come in regularly for refills. I was his attending physician. He gave a low, gruff hum, his eyes fixed somewhere past me. I nodded and wrote out the prescription quickly. It was always the same few medications, for the old injury in his leg. Holden took the slip, stood up, and walked out, smooth, efficient, no wasted movement. It struck me then that for all his regular visits, we'd never exchanged more than those 2 sentences. We'd never had a real conversation. I barely knew anything about him, even though we both lived on the same military base housing. Quiet, mysterious, cold, that was the base's consensus on him. He'd come from nothing, clawed his way up through service, earned his rank through blood and injury, and become the youngest officer on the base. Plenty of people tried to get close to him, but he was a wall of ice, always keeping everyone at arm's length. The only time anyone ever saw him smile was when he walked beside his wife. Everyone on base said they looked perfect together, like a match made in heaven. Tragically, his wife had passed away from illness the year before. After that, the already quiet man had grown even more withdrawn. Over time, people on base had started avoiding him entirely. Wherever he went, a cloud of gloom seemed to follow him, making the air heavy and uncomfortable, so people stayed away. If that's how it is. I curved my lips into a small smile. As his doctor, it's only reasonable I take a little extra interest in his condition, right? If Ethan was so eager to care for his fallen fellow soldier's wife and daughter, then I could care for his widowed fellow soldier too. By Ethan's own logic, helping people in need is the right thing to do. Holden usually came in for refills once a week. When he showed up a week later, I made up an excuse to keep him in my office. Major Hayes, I'm sorry, we're out of your medication at the pharmacy right now. I can't write the refill. I told a small lie, and Holden took it immediately. Then what do I do? His brow furrowed slightly, but his dark eyes stayed calm. I bit my lower lip, forcing myself to stay steady and not give anything away. Something about those sharp, perceptive eyes of his made me feel like he could see right through me. How bad is the pain? Can you wait a little while? I played a little hard to make it more convincing. Holden's expression didn't change. Yeah. It's bad. I put on a troubled look at once. Oh, that's not good. As soon as the shipment comes in, I can personally. I was about to ask for his address to drop it off, but Holden cut me off first. I'll write down my address. He pulled a notepad and pen straight out of his pocket and jotted it down quickly. Dr. Moore. I'll be waiting. With that, he stood and left, just as brisk as always. I sat there holding the address for a long minute. Wait, that was too easy. So easy it felt like I was the one who'd walked into his trap, not the other way around. No sooner had Holden left than Ethan showed up. For once, he said, "Vivian, I'm sorry. I know the breakfast I made wasn't what you like. I'll make it up to you properly. My car's downstairs. Let's go to that downtown family diner, make up for that dinner." He sounded sincere, his eyes a little red-rimmed. I slipped off my white coat and gathered my things, my heart hardening. I have patient charts to go over tonight. I can't go. I walked right past him and out the door. Ethan followed stubbornly behind me all the way down to the parking lot. The second we stepped outside, I saw his car. He really had been waiting for me, but there was someone else inside. Scarlett was sitting in the passenger seat, holding Sophia. When she saw me come out, Scarlett pushed the door open with that fake sweetness of hers. "Vivian. I'm sorry, I'm such a third wheel again." But Ethan said it was fine to bring me along, said it'd be more fun with more people. There was a smug, triumphant glint in her eyes when she looked at me. I lifted one corner of my mouth and walked right past her, turning to Ethan. "You go eat with them. Have fun. I'll ride my bike home." I headed for the bike shed, ready to take my vintage road bicycle. But Scarlett grabbed my arm. Her eyes were red, soft and pitiful as a little rabbit. "Vivian, do you hate me? If that's the case, I won't go. Sophia and I can walk home. You and Ethan go have dinner, just the two of you." She turned her head away and dabbed at her tears, putting on the perfect show of me being the cruel, intolerant wife. I almost laughed at her acting skills. But Ethan, just like in my past life, fell for it every time. "Scarlett, don't say that. No one hates you." The tenderness in his eyes was something I'd never once seen directed at me. In the next breath, he turned on me, his gaze sharp and angry. "Vivian, do you have to be so bitter? Is it really that hard to come eat with us?" There it was, he was putting all the blame on me, just like before. I was about to snap back when another car pulled up beside us. The window rolled down, revealing Holden Hayes' sharp, chiseled face. "Dr. Moore. Out of leg pain meds. Got anything for heartache?" The air went dead still. I wrenched my arm free of Ethan's grip and walked straight to Holden's car. "I have a patient to see. I'll be going now." I opened the door and slid into the passenger seat. Holden hit the gas, and we pulled away, leaving Ethan behind. In the rearview mirror, I could still see the furious look on his face. "Ethan? What's wrong?" Scarlett shook his arm when he kept staring after the car. Ethan schooled his expression and shook his head. "Nothing. Come on, Scarlett. Let's go eat." Right before he got in the car, he glanced one more time in the direction we'd driven. He frowned. Vivian was a surgeon. Why would she prescribe anything for heartache? I'd wondered the exact same thing. Not until after I got in the car. I'd been so focused on escaping that I'd missed the odd tone in Holden's line. The car was quiet, so still you could almost hear every breath. I steeled myself and spoke first. "Thanks for that, back there." "As a thank you." Again, I didn't get to finish. Holden cut me off. "Then you can drop off the medication at my place, Dr. Moore." He turned his head to look at me, his eyes bright and steady. I nodded, looking away to hide my nervousness. "All right. It's the least I can do." I quickly fixed my gaze out the window. The scenery blurred past as we drove. From the corner of my eye, I glanced at his foot on the gas pedal. Wait a minute. His leg didn't seem to hurt all that bad, did it? Holden dropped me off at my building. I thanked him and headed upstairs. This time, Ethan was home waiting for me. He hadn't gone to dinner with Scarlett after all. When I walked in, his head snapped up. He walked to the window and watched Holden's car drive away, his jaw tight. Since when does Holden Hayes have heart trouble? He frowned, sounding irritated. I said nothing. He went on. You're a surgeon. Since when do you treat cardiac issues? He was getting agitated. I skipped right past his question and gave him a cool, level look. Weren't you going to dinner with Scarlett? Why are you back so early? I'd figured he'd be over at her place half the night, like usual. Ethan froze for a second. He had gone to dinner with Scarlett and Sophia, but he'd been distracted the whole time. All he could think about was Holden's line. Dr. Moore, got anything for heartache? For some reason, it had made his chest feel tight, restless, wrong. He'd picked at his food, lied about having an emergency, and come home early. It was the first time he'd ever left Scarlett and Sophia alone. He straightened up, his eyes uneasy as he looked at me. Vivian, I think you should keep your distance from Holden. I cut him off. He's my patient. Besides, his wife passed last year. He's alone, and he's dealing with old injuries. He needs the help. Isn't that what you always told me? That looking out for people is the right thing to do? I met his gaze calmly. That was exactly what Ethan had said when Scarlett's husband died. Now I was doing the exact same thing he'd done. Why was he so upset about it? The next day was the weekend. I left early to drop off Holden's medication. Ethan also got a phone call first thing, Scarlett, saying Sophia was throwing a fit, begging Uncle Ethan to take her to the park. I knew her game. Ethan had bailed on her the night before to come home to me. Of course she wasn't going to let that stand. What I didn't expect was that Ethan said no. Scarlett, I'm sorry. Can we do it another day? I have something important today. I heard him say it while I was putting on my shoes by the door. He glanced over at me as he spoke. Over the landline, Scarlett's voice went wobbly with tears. Ethan, is this because Vivian was upset last night? It's fine, you stay with her. I'll keep Sophia busy, we won't bother you. Right as she finished, Sophia started wailing loud and clear on the other end. No. I want Uncle Ethan. Why, doesn't Uncle Ethan love me anymore? He promised Daddy he'd take care of us. I closed the door before I could hear the rest. Through the door, I could still picture Ethan's torn, conflicted face. At the end of the day, he could never fully walk away from Scarlett and Sophia. But none of that was my problem anymore. I took the medication and followed the address Holden had given me to his house. It was a standalone house, one of the nicest on the entire base. I knocked. Holden answered right away. The second he saw me, his brows drew together, like he was in terrible pain. Got the meds? I nodded. Right here. I pulled them out of my bag and handed them over. He didn't hesitate. He tore open the package, popped 2 pills, and swallowed them dry. Looks like it's really acting up, I said, frowning a little myself. His old injury must be worse than I thought. Maybe it hadn't healed right back then, left permanent damage. After he took the pills, he looked over at me, his gaze softening. I stood outside the door, he stood inside. Neither of us moved. Dr. Moore, could you help me inside? He held out an arm, asking for support. I blinked. Wait, he'd opened the door just fine a second ago. But he'd asked, and I couldn't exactly say no. Sure. I stepped forward and let him rest his arm on my shoulder. At well over 6 feet tall, he leaned a solid weight on me, not too heavy, but close enough that the air between us felt suddenly charged. My cheeks warmed against my will. Holden let out a low, amused sound. Relax, Dr. Moore. My breath caught. My face burned all the way to the tips of my ears. I hurried him over to the couch and stepped back quickly. Right. Just take it easy, and take your meds on time. I dropped them off, so I should go. I turned and practically ran for the door. But I ran straight into Ethan, who'd just chased after me. When he saw me coming out of Holden's house, his face darkened. "Ethan? What are you doing here?" I'd figured he'd be with Scarlett at the park. Ethan stepped forward and grabbed my wrist hard. "We're going home. Now." His voice was sharp, angry, unyielding. I opened my mouth to say something, but from inside the house behind me, I heard Holden's voice, raw and helpless. "Dr. Moore. It hurts." As a doctor, I almost turned back on instinct. But Ethan wouldn't let me. "Come on. Leave him." Ethan was furious, his gaze sharp and vicious as he stared at Holden's front door. I hesitated. Then Holden cried out again, louder. Dr. Moore." The next thing I knew, he was crawling out the front door, sweat dripping down his face, pale and strained. I wrenched my hand free of Ethan's grip. "No. I can't just leave him like this." I tossed the words over my shoulder and ran to Holden. I knelt beside him. "Are you all right? Let me take a look." I reached to roll up his pant leg. Holden, grimacing in pain, caught my hand in his. His eyes were wide, miserable, pleading. "Dr. Moore, it hurts so bad. You're the only one who can help me. The floor's cold and hard, can you help me back to the couch?" He begged, his eyes glistening, looking so broken and vulnerable. My heart softened. Even the toughest, most unyielding man had his weak moments. I nodded and hauled him up, same position as before, only this time, his arm was tighter around my shoulders. I didn't mind. I just focused on getting him to the couch. Then I quickly rolled up his pant leg. When I saw the thick, jagged scars crisscrossing his leg, I froze. My throat tightened, suddenly thick with emotion. So this was what a decorated war hero's leg looked like. I examined him thoroughly, but found nothing seriously wrong. Still, he kept insisting the pain was unbearable. Ethan stood in the doorway the whole time, his face thunderous. "Holden Hayes. You're laying it on pretty thick." His venomous tone shocked me. I turned and gave him a sharp, reproachful look. "Ethan. He's a patient. Do you have to be so cruel?" Ethan was about to retort when Holden cut him off. "Colonel Carter, don't be angry with Dr. Moore. This is all my fault. I'm taking up time you should be spending with your wife. But the pain. I can't stand it. For the sake of my service, for the wounds I took for this country, let Dr. Moore treat me. Please." I kept examining him, but a thought flickered through my head. Wait, wasn't Holden supposed to be quiet? Why was he talking so much today? And why did he sound exactly like Scarlett Reed? The thought vanished as quickly as it came. I went back to focusing on his leg. After a minute, I stood up. "It's just your old injury flaring up. Keep taking the medication. Don't skip doses." I rolled his pant leg back down carefully, giving him clear instructions. Holden nodded obediently. "Can we go home now?" Ethan's voice was cold from the doorway. I didn't want to, but I'd delivered the meds. It was time to leave. But then Holden grabbed my arm. "Dr. Moore, do you cook? I'm so hungry. Ever since I've been alone, I haven't had a proper meal. They say taking pills on an empty stomach ruins your stomach." He gave me that same pleading look. I hesitated. He really did have it rough. "All right. Fine." I'd barely said the word when Ethan spoke up again. "Cut the act. Aren't there the mess hall? Why don't you go there?" He glared at Holden like he wanted to tear him apart. Holden just glanced down at his leg and said flatly, "Can't walk that far." "You can't tell?" On the drive home, Ethan was silent and scowling. Halfway there, he finally snapped. That Holden Hayes is doing this on purpose. Can't you see that? His brow was furrowed tight. I turned to him, cool and detached. Scarlett does the exact same thing to you. Can't you see that? Ethan went completely silent, struck dumb. The rest of the ride was quiet, thick with tension. When we pulled up to our building, two thin figures were waiting outside in the cool evening wind. Scarlett and Sophia. The second she saw Ethan's car, Scarlett rushed over, eyes red and wet. Ethan, you're finally back. Sophia's sick. She's burning up. Please, you have to help her, I don't know what to do. She cried as she pressed Sophia's forehead to Ethan's hand. Ethan felt her temperature and went tense with alarm. She's burning up. Get in the car, I'll take you both to the hospital right now. He left me standing there without a second thought, picked Sophia up, and climbed into the back seat. Scarlett scrambled into the passenger seat right after him. As she passed me, she whispered, quiet enough only I could hear. Ethan's mine. Don't even think about trying to take him from me, Vivian. I curled my lip and laughed softly. Relax. You can have the garbage. Enjoy. With that, I turned and walked upstairs without looking back. I slept through half the night. Ethan never came home. But the phone rang first, Holden, of all people. How did you get my landline number? I was stunned by how he'd tracked it down. But he only groaned in pain. Dr. Moore, can you bring some painkillers? It's so bad. I'll send my driver to pick you up. I stared out at the dark night, about to say no, but Holden hung up before I could. A few minutes later, a car pulled up outside and honked. I thought about it, then got dressed and headed down. The driver sped me straight to Holden's house. The second the door opened, Holden's tall frame filled the doorway, solid as a wall. Then the wall started to fall. I reached out on instinct to catch him. Holden. His head fell to my shoulder, his voice weak. Dr. Moore. I think I'm dying. I felt his forehead. It was burning up. I pulled my hand back, shocked. You're burning up. Holden, what did you do? I demanded sharply. He blinked slowly, exhausted. It hurt so bad. I took a lot of painkillers. As he spoke, I caught sight of the empty pill wrapper on the coffee table out of the corner of my eye. A whole packet. He'd taken all of it. My jaw tightened. I called over his driver, who was right behind me. Help me get him to bed. We don't have time to get to the hospital. I have to make him throw up, now. The driver didn't waste a second. Together, we half-carried Holden to the bedroom. I made him drink large amounts of water, then induced vomiting. Holden threw up until his face was ashen. But he was out of danger. I gave him a cool sponge bath, and his fever slowly broke. The whole ordeal lasted until dawn. When Ethan got home the next morning, I was gone. When I got home the following evening, Ethan had been waiting there for me all day. His eyes were sunken, his face worn, like he'd aged years. When he saw me, his eyes glistened. Vivian. Be honest with me. You don't love me anymore, do you? His voice shook. He looked like he'd shatter if you so much as breathed on him wrong. I paused. I wanted to tell him the truth, but it felt cruel. But my silence was answer enough. Ethan understood. He closed his eyes, and a tear slid down his cheek. Vivian, we're married. You know that, right? I let out a bitter, mocking laugh. Oh, so you remember that, do you? Where was that memory when you were running over to Scarlett's house every night? Ethan didn't see his own fault at all. His gaze turned cold. Vivian. Let's get a divorce. Finally. He was the one saying it this time. I opened my mouth to say yes, but he stood up first, took a pen, and marked a red X on the wall calendar. Vivian. I'm giving you one more chance. If you haven't come to your senses by this day, I'll leave. For good. Now he was the one with the ridiculous divorce countdown. I almost laughed at the irony. What about Scarlett? I was curious what he'd do about her. Ethan's face went cold, hard as stone. I've arranged for someone else to take care of them. She's none of my business anymore. I smiled at how cold and final he sounded. Why couldn't he have been this decisive in my past life? Of course. The grass is always greener when you can't have it. Once you know it's yours, the novelty wears off completely. Ethan's divorce countdown was 5 days. For those 5 days, I either worked or spent time taking care of Holden. I hadn't meant for it to turn out that way. But every single day when my shift ended, Holden's driver was waiting outside the hospital. Holden would lean out the back window, looking fragile and sad. Dr. Moore. Your cooking is so good. Tastes just like my sister's. Can you make it again for me? If I so much as hesitated, he looked like he was about to cry. I guess I was asking too much. He looked like he might break apart right there. Then he'd start talking, quiet and sad. You probably don't know, Dr. Moore. I never had parents. My sister raised me, begging for food to keep us alive. Before he could finish, my chest felt too tight to bear. All right, all right. I'll come. Just stop talking about it. And the next second, he'd break into a bright, genuine smile. Thank you, Dr. Moore. You're the best. So I spent 5 whole days running over there, stuck being the nice guy. When I finally had time to go home, Ethan was already gone. On the table sat divorce papers and a note from him. Vivian. I've been deployed on a classified mission to the Arizona desert. If you change your mind, come find me there. I'll always be waiting for you. He was waiting for me to regret it. I curled my lip. That would never happen. I picked up the pen and signed the divorce papers without a single second of hesitation. Ethan Carter, I'm not like you. I don't drag my feet. Holden must have heard about the divorce somehow. After that day, he got even bolder. And little by little, I started noticing things off about his injury. Like how I'd seen him walking perfectly fine from an upstairs window, but the second he spotted me, he started limping. Or how he was never hungry until I was about to leave, then suddenly he was starving, begging me to stay and cook for him. Or how he had a military orderly on staff, but the man always vanished the second I showed up. All in all, he was doing everything he could to look like a poor, lonely, helpless man. But I had no proof. To catch him in the act, I invited him on a day trip to the countryside for the holiday. Holden said yes immediately. At first, he limped his way to the car and had his driver take us out of town. He stayed injured the whole time we were there. Until I slipped and fell into the river. That's when Holden finally dropped the act. I watched him sprint full tilt into the water and yank me out like it was nothing. Vivian, are you all right? Hold on, we're getting out of here right now. He held me tight, his olive green uniform shirt soaked through, clinging to the solid muscle of his chest and arms. I lay there in his arms, my face heating up. For some reason, I couldn't look him in the eye. Holden Hayes. You lied to me. Your leg is fine. He froze for a second, then went quiet. A moment later, he spoke, his voice warm with amusement. So you were testing me. Nice acting. That made me mad. After all the little acts he'd pulled on me these past weeks. I pushed myself out of his arms. You're the one who's been acting. Holden, why did you come after me? What do you want? I glared up at him, his tall shadow falling over me completely. He looked down at me, his dark eyes deep and steady. Vivian. Because I love you. I found out later that he'd been trying to get close to me even in my past life. Every single trip to the clinic, every refill, it was all just an excuse to see me. His old injury had never bothered him. Later, he took me to his house and opened a cabinet. Bottle after bottle of unopened medication came tumbling out, all the refills he'd picked up over the years. That wasn't medicine. That was proof of how long he'd loved me. If you wanted to see me, why didn't you ever talk to me? Holden smiled a small, quiet smile, back to his usual steady self. Because back then, you were already married to Ethan. It hit me then. Every single encounter we'd had was a web he'd carefully woven. He'd known all about Scarlett. He'd known I'd offered to drop off the medicine on purpose. He'd known everything, and he'd played right along. I brushed a tear from the corner of my eye, deliberately sarcastic. What about your dead wife, then? Didn't you love her? After all this time together, I didn't believe for a second Holden was that heartless. Falling for someone new only a year after his wife died? It didn't fit. Holden's gaze sharpened. What wife? I had a sister. We grew up together. Wait, people on base think she was my wife? Everything clicked into place. So that's why everyone said they looked like a perfect couple. I threw my arms around him tight, tears stinging my eyes. In this man, I saw something I'd never had. Ethan was fickle, cold, quick to change his mind. Holden was steady. Constant. Unshakable. In the days that followed, Holden told me about the first time we met. Back when he was still a kid, living on the streets with his sister, scavenging for food to survive. One year, I'd been visiting family relatives out in the country and ran into him. He was crouched by the side of the road, holding a chipped little bowl. Holding it out to every passerby, eyes big and hungry. I was younger than him, but I'd grown up on base, with everything I needed. I'd tugged on my dad's hand, begging him to stop the car. When he did, I'd taken all the pocket money my mom had given me and ran over to him as fast as I could. Here you go. I'd dumped every last cent I had into his bowl, generous and earnest. It was 1973. I was 8 years old. I'd given him $3 whole. Back then, that was more money than Holden had ever seen in his life. Later, he told me with a laugh, if it hadn't been for that $3, my sister and I would have starved that winter. When I got older, I joined the military, fought my way up. Finally gave my sister a good life. Became the youngest officer on the base. But then, my sister. His voice thickened. He pulled me close, tight. Vivian, you have no idea. All these years, I've been looking for you. I thought back to the first time Holden had walked into my office. That look in his eyes, shocked, happy, hungry. I'd forgotten all about him by then. I reached up and looped my arms gently around his neck. Holden. I'll never forget you again. Ethan waited in the Arizona desert, but I never came. He couldn't take it anymore. As soon as his mission ended, he came rushing back. But the news he got was that Vivian Moore and Holden Hayes were getting married. On our wedding day, Ethan stood outside the reception hall, gaunt and hollow-eyed. I didn't see him until Holden and I walked out to see our guests off. I pretended not to notice the desperate, longing look on his face. I just walked hand in hand with Holden, accepting every well-wish from our guests. I didn't want to think about the old days anymore. Later, I heard from friends that Ethan never did shake Scarlett off. Scarlett told him if he didn't marry her, she'd go straight to base command and make a scene. After all these years, everyone on base had seen how close they were. Ethan couldn't take the pressure. He caved. After he married Scarlett, I'd run into him sometimes around the base. That bright, ambitious spark he'd had when he was young was gone. All that was left was regret and exhaustion. A few times he tried to come over and talk to me, but I always walked away first. Strangers was better. Now, my heart, my eyes, my whole world only Holden Hayes. And he felt the exact same way about me.